And I'll start sharing the screen. Let's see. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yep.
Great. Okay. Okay, welcome everyone to the meeting number 23 of the SingularityNET-Archive Workgroup Project Management working meeting. I'll just give a little bit of a preamble. The SingularityNET-Archive contains a history of the activities of the SingularityNET Ambassador Program. All content is provided under an open source Apache 2 license, and we'll be looking at how contributions can be licensed under a Creative Commons license for attribution. This meeting is recorded. Our goal is to provide a collaborative platform for the archive, the archive community, to share knowledge, ideas, and best practices. And we welcome contributions from anyone interested, whether it's a new project code, example, or documentation. So our process really is really quite simple. First of all, we start with some action items, which I'll go over to Vanessa to do. Then we action and decision items, and then we go to the board and run through the board, giving updates of where we are, and I'll explain how that works when we get to it. But do you shall I open the action items thing, or do you want to share the screen, Vanessa?
Yeah, if I can share screen, then I can actually change
Yeah,
things as I go. So let me
yeah,
just
let's do that.
all right, okay.
Yeah.
It's telling me I can't because you're sharing. A minute. There we go. All right.
If you could
Can
mute
everyone
if you're
see
not.
what?
If you have your mic on, can you mute whoever that some.
Yeah,
Okay, thank
there's a
you.
bit of background noise. Thanks. All right, yeah. So people who have ever done any documentation for another meeting will have seen this interface before. This is the meeting summary template, and it is quite handy in that it allows us to track kind of how we're going with decisions and action items. First of all, I've put in who's here today. I haven't missed anyone, have I? There's 9 of us. That's right. Okay,
There's
good.
Colleen.
Oh, is Colleen here? Oh, right.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
yeah.
couldn't see you. All right.
I think she just arrived actually. So
Nice one. Okay, perfect. So we've got decisions, and I think we're just going to remove them all because these are from the last meeting, the decisions we made, and there's nothing to add. So we agreed the Q2 budget. That's all done. It's in process on being agreed now. We noted that the Supervisory Council will be discussing and deciding on our input. That was like last week. So that decision is removed and it's on the board. So we'll discuss it when we come to it. And we noted about the videos, the timestamping of the BGI videos that Duke had to drop out because of pressure of time, and the essay and Onyeka were going to do it. So there's nothing to add on there, and it's on we'll see it when we get to it on the board. So decisions. Stephen, to check why Sucre and Spice doesn't seem to have permissions to merge changes. You haven't looked at it, I bet, have you?
no, I haven't. It's an action. It's not a decision.
It's not, it's an action. So I'm going to
Yeah,
leave it as in progress. This has been on for a while, and I'm
I
going to
know.
change the
I
due
know.
date to our next meeting. Okay. Onyeka and essay to timestamp the BGR videos. That is actually done. So when I tick done, this means it doesn't appear in this list in the meeting summaries next time. Duke to create a video walkthrough of how to use the GitHub board. I think that's still in progress, right, Duke? I don't know if you can talk or.
If you can't
Talk,
talk,
but
oh, go on.
yeah, I can.
Go on, go. Yeah.
Um, on a timeline for this.
I mean, it's when you get to it, really. I mean, what I can do is I can put it for in progress and put it for the next meeting, and we'll see how you go. And, you know, it's just, I don't think
No,
it's urgent, but it's
I,
when you've
I,
got time.
a
Sorry?
timeline. No, I work better when I have timelines.
Oh, okay. Well, let's say if you can get it done for the next meeting in 2 weeks' time, that would be excellent.
Okay, yeah, it'll be ready by then.
Ace. All right. Sucre to add the Q1 quarterly report to the Ambassador Git book. Is Sucre here?
Don't think so, no.
Right. I haven't checked to see if it's done, so I will check that whether it's there or not before I resolve that. But for now, I'll leave it in progress. I was to DM participants in the Tag Taxonomy project and set a date for training. That was done, and we had it on the 29th. So we'll get to that when we get to it. Oh, whoever's got their mic open, I can hear an echo of myself. Can you mute yourself? Thank you. Right, progress the idea of doing a town hall session on how we use GitHub. That's kind of expanded a bit. It's in the board, so I am going to put it as done, I think, because it can now go to the board and we'll maybe have a new action item out of it today. I was to find out whether Strategy Guild is now folded into R&D and what they're doing. I'm going to put it as in progress because I haven't had a reply really yet, so we'll see. Core Archives team to meet with Ubio on the 22nd. That's done. We met and the results will be gone through when we get to that on the board. And Essie was to talk to Kenichi to find out whether Writers Work Group are currently doing meeting summaries. We can get to that, Essie, when we get to the relevant issues on the board. But I just wondered, did you get to talk to him?
If you can't speak SE, oh,
Bunny, actually, no, I haven't.
All right, no worries. Well, let's put it as an action item for our next meeting.
I'll just do that now so I don't forget again. Or I don't.
All right, nice one. Okay, so can I just do a quick check before we close this of who's here that I haven't got, because I can see there's 14 people and I've only got like 12. Colleen, I've got Andre, I've got Clement. Nice one, nice to see you, mate.
Thanks, Vanny. It's nice to be here.
it's great to have you here.
Duke, Akimini, I've got Essie, I've got Gorga. Hi, Gorga.
Hello, Vanessa.
Hello there.
Let me just put you in. Gosh, you've got so many different spellings of your name. That's the right one, isn't it? Siagian. I think that's correct.
All
We
right,
need
no
to
problem.
sort out names. We really do.
I think I'm 2 persons.
Oh, Mikassa's here. Nice one. And Samson Freeman, we've not met before. Hiya. Okay, let me just put Mikasa and Samson Freeman in.
Hi, Bunny. Hi, everyone.
Hi there.
Hiya.
Hello, Mikasa.
Hi.
Nice one. Right, I can stop sharing. I will save all that, and just in case people didn't realize, you save it and then you can continue to make changes to it and save it again as long as it's you that's doing it. So yeah, I'll unshare.
You forgot Billy, Vanessa.
Sorry, say again.
You forgot Billy. He's
No, I didn't.
joining.
I'm sure I already had him in. Let me just make sure. No, he's already there. He got here early, so I put him in.
His Zoom name is William.
Yeah, no, Billy, I got you already.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're there.
Okay, I'll move on to where am I going? I'm just looking at where my hold on a second. I just need to get up my right screen. Okay. Can people see that?
Yep.
Yep, thank you for the confirming. Okay, that was the updates from Vanessa on action items and decision items. Now we'll go through the project board itself. And for people who are new, I'll give a quick update of how this works. This is a GitHub project board, which, if you're familiar with how Kanban boards work, this also can be viewed in that format, Kanban format, or on milestones as well. It can be ordered by, which is useful for export to budgets. and it also can be seen in the Gantt view, which is, some people might find that useful. We tend to just go through it as a list of issues which are to do and in progress, but we focus on what's in progress. And the way we do it is to go through each one, and it's a bit like a stand-up. So there's an issue for the meeting itself, which is, records the work of what we're doing now. And then we go through, let's make this a bit. Then we go through each category of issue. Let's see, the categories here, and give it over to the assignee to give an update. So I'm just going to see if I can make that a bit smaller. That's better. Okay, so we're starting with the governance Gitbook, and that's Vanessa.
Right, yeah. I haven't made much progress on this because there has been a few changes and things that we need to think about. But the list at the bottom of what is going to go in the sort of, I know when I say Q1, it's awful because we're already a month into Q2 now. But yeah, these things are what I'm trying to work out is a structure that will not only include these things, but enable us to add the other things that we want to add as well. So yeah, in progress, and I don't think there's anything to add, and there won't be until next meeting. So I apologize for that. But
And
yeah.
that goes for
And the
part
same
two.
with part 2. Yeah,
Okay.
same. So yeah, I'm going to focus on that in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we will get some stuff up. But like, if anybody was in town hall last night, we were talking about this, and that was in our update as stuff that we've been thinking about a lot, but we haven't actually got it finished yet. And there's a lot to focus on around the whole question of open source and how we make sure that governance information is open sourced. So yeah.
Right. Okay, yeah, just a note of explanation there. Sometimes work is broken into 2 issues for budgetary reasons. That's why there's 2 issues here for the same sort of task. Okay, I'm moving on to the next issue, which is LLM, large language model development. This was in hiatus for a long time and is now being reactivated with new work I've been doing on setting up first thing I did was set up a development environment for Python in VS Code. The reason why what I'm trying to do here is not just do large language model development, but also record how I'm doing it for educational purposes. So where I've started with how to set up a typical environment for coding. I've documented some of that here, certainly on VS Code anyway, and then how you might do. Paul, if you could mute yourself, whoever that is, and yeah. So if anyone's interested in the technical details there, including how to set up API keys, that's sort of starting there. I'll, rather than hand over to you, Andrew, if I just cover my other development issue as well, if that's okay, Andrew, and then I'll pass it over to you. Yeah. Okay. We have a general issue to cover, which is generally called open source strategy. And this is currently a bit of a holding issue because we're just starting a whole lot of new tasks. And actually, this might interest people who are here because there's potential for new work or new participation. I'll go through them one by one, but this is a work in progress. Okay. The first thing we're looking at is a technical documentation process. This can be seen here in our main repository, and it's really based on it's similar to like a SIP process, which is, if anyone's familiar with improvement processes in Bitcoin and Cardano, a SIP process is where you submit improvement proposals to a repository, and you know, and then that's reviewed by people. But this is aimed just to be for technical documentation, and it's just started a work in progress. Oh, so the idea is to, yeah, so I'll move back to where we were here. Okay, I'll come back to that in a bit. But there's also, we're planning to do work on open source and Creative Commons licensing. And so we're going to clarify what does and doesn't need a license, what kind of license our work needs, and when we need to apply Creative Commons attribution licenses. The work related to the top one of the technical documentation process, the reason why this was set up really was to create a draft of a RAG workflow. And very briefly, I'll explain what a RAG is. It's a retrieval augmented generation. That's what it stands for. And really, it's a choice we are making in our first AI workflow. Now, there's lots of different ways to approach AI. What we're choosing to do here, because we're running an archive, is to create a workflow which looks at a controlled retrieval of the data. So our first part of the method will be how to contextualize the data that we have. That's where we start. Then we apply agents to that data. So we need to do research in there. And that's really basically creating context for examining what the data we have, applying standard questions to the data. Then the next stage will be, and this can take months, by the way. So the next stage is then an evaluation stage, and the evaluation stage basically is auditing what is being generated. So I won't go into too much detail here because this is again a work in progress, and we're at a very early stage here. There we go. Right. As you can see, I've started recording pull requests for the changes on this documentation. So also need to explain how this works in future as well. Another thing we're doing is putting together our general approach to open source in a presentation we're having preparation for an open source paradigm. I'll just very briefly show what that's going to cover. And really it's going to look at how we why we approach things through an open source method. And this particular, I won't go into too much detail, but it really covers things like transparency, collaboration, iterative improvement, cost effectiveness, and community ownership. And we aim to take each of those categories and demonstrate how each of our work areas applies in each of these categories, and then do a presentation which we can present at sort of town halls or online, that kind of thing. And associated with all this is again a task we need to look at AI ethics, which again is a very big issue, and it's related to how we approach things like open source and Creative Commons, how we run our RAG process, because there's ethical dimensions when we come to safeguarding data. So, and also for establishing who owns the data or who should be attributed for the data. You know, so again, I won't go into that, and this is just a hold-all issue, and we need to possibly break down some of this into separate issues potentially. Is there any comments on this or any input, Vanessa or Andre? If not, I'll move on to.
I know Colleen in the chat is saying, I do work in GitHub, commits, pull requests, admin, etc. Good to know, Colleen. Thank you very much. We'll, have to bear that in mind.
That's excellent. So I didn't go into, there is That's great. I mean, I probably will pose something more. I wasn't assuming any knowledge here, but if you're familiar with the pull request process, what I'm trying to base the technical documentation process on something like a SIP process. Now, so if you look at this repository here, if I copy it into chat, I'm not sure if that gets into chat. Let's paste it into chat there. So here, what I'm trying to do is create a README, which would introduce the process for what a technical documentation. You see that's not even complete here, but it's basically to say what a technical design document would look like. Okay. And then, as you can say, it's going to be broadly based on things like blockchain improvement proposals. So you can see a link there to what blockchain improvement proposals are. And then we need to decide things like does our technical documentation, what's the scope of it? What is a technical document? How our process works? If you're knowledgeable in GitHub, this is something we need to look at as well, like the role of editors, like who reviews our documentation, and how we go about proposing, discussing, and structuring. I should qualify this as technical documentation. I'm talking here about, not a general documentation. And then I've given a sample. So there's the README file, which obviously needs to be updated, and we need to explain this process better. And then I put in a sample document, which again is slightly based off SIP standards, where you have YAML at the top. YAML is like metadata at the top, which explains, data related to the document, like the title, the status, the category, authors, and so on, and a link to discussions. And then you have the content there, which could then be updated through a pull request. So, which would look like, well, I just did some sample ones here. So if you want to look at the pull requests here, but we need to, again, to make this far more systematic than it is at present. I won't dwell on that too much, but that's really where we're going with that. And let's close this down and get back to where we were. But by all means, if anyone here is knowledgeable in GitHub, the use of GitHub, again, you've got good timing because we're right at the beginning of something here. So it's going to be part of our whole strategy, basically. And also, one of the candidates for the first technical will be our RAG, our retrieval augmented generation workflow will be the first candidate as a technical documentation. So I don't want to sort of take up too much of the meeting. So yeah, so is there any more questions in chat? So it's hard for me to open chat and to do this. If anyone can say if there's any questions there.
No, there's a question from Gorga that we'll get to as when we get to Andre's report backs.
Right. Okay. I'm so sorry to sort of do a big dump on all that information, but it's great to have some feedback on who is interested maybe in participating, particularly in our open source strategy, and that includes like designing how we do things, how we approach things, how we do technical document reviews, and then also particularly how we may apply technical documentation to begin to develop large language models. But I would qualify that by saying that the large language models, we're not just doing any large language models, we're choosing to do a particular workflow, which is the retrieval augmented generation workflow. Okay, I'll stop then and I'll hand over to
Would it be helpful if anyone who is kind of interested in technical documentation, just stick your name in the chat and then we just have a rough idea of who's interested? I'm assuming Colleen, but maybe somebody else as well.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Right, I just saw some questions. Just catching up. Right, Sam Akimi says, does technical documentation involve working on the LLM? Yes, potentially, yes. Really, I'm just trying to lay the groundwork here, and it's not quite ready for people to be participating yet. But the if I go to, let's try and find where we are, open source strategy. Yeah, I mean, really, I'm trying to establish basically hello world type things that people can follow. Because again, to qualify what we're doing, we're not just developing an LLM, we're trying to do it in a way that brings people with us. So what we're trying to do is like, there's also an educational aspect to this. So the first part of that is to sort of contextualize what we're doing. So what the context is that we're developing a large language model. Then the next part of that context is we're choosing this workflow. Now, the reason why we're choosing this workflow is because we're trying to capture domain knowledge, because the archive captures our domain knowledge. So it's not just a kind of generalist AI, but a kind of AI that's informed and restricted by or augmented by the context that we apply to it. Now, on the LLM development front, I've just done some on the so far I'm just setting up the development environment, which I mentioned in the other issue about LLM development. And so people are welcome to look at this repository, but this repository will include examples. The first example here is, for example, a JSON loader. JSON is a format, if anyone doesn't know, like CSV file. It's a standard format which we will export from, Andre's kindly exporting data that we're capturing from the archives into a JSON format, into a repository. So that open sources the data. Then we'll be looking at feeding in JSON files into LangChain. Now, this initial Python notebook, which also could be opened in Google Colab, all this does, it's like educational. It's just saying what do you need to load the files into LangChain. So it's really kind of begins right at the beginning to see what would you need just to get the JSON into the LangChain model. How would you then constrain that input? And this is just a constraint on the JSON, and then how you would print that out. So it's really kind of like basic stuff. What I need to do, what I'm hoping to do here is to have a basic life cycle. So this is an example of retrieval. I need to put in a notebook for an example of augmentation, which is applying a context to the data, and then an example for auditing the data. So again, I don't want to. Yeah, that's where we are. And yes, there will be opportunities for participation and educational opportunities here. So watch this space. So let's check questions anymore. Okay, I'm glad people are interested. And as I say, please, this is like going to be a group effort, and it's not a development project as such. It's more like a community project because we're aiming to bring people with us. And I'll stop there and get back to where we were. Okay, Andre, sorry about that. The other development issues. Yeah. Document management and tooling. Should we look at that?
Document.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for this one, if you scroll down, I left a comment.
Yeah.
So I've got all the commits there, but basically it's this automation. It's a GitHub action that I've built that captures that. So what will happen is we'll have a list of documents, and then this action will go through all the documents, and it will look if the document changed. Still designing that trigger, but if it has changed, it can take a snapshot of the document, and it can get the comments and the replies, and I can also capture the text of the document. So that's basically what it's doing now. I've just got 2 simple test documents in there. It's not really.
Right. Okay. I'll just try to give an example of where
Yeah,
where that lives. I was sorry, but
Yeah.
And to give some context here for people who are new, trying to think how to summarize this. What we're trying to do here is yes, we're looking at document management. This is document management in terms of interfacing with the Google Docs API. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
the problem, I'll just give a brief explanation for people who are new. As you know, we're running an archive, and a lot of source documentation is on our platforms outside of GitHub, which includes often Google Docs. And there's an API to Google Docs, which and Andre, you're using that to access data in Google Docs and then extract that into a database. Is that right?
yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'll shut up now. So
I think there's also maybe a next step is deciding if we want to save some of the data in a repo so people have access to it somewhere else as well. Certain parts of the data, still thinking about what that would look like.
Right.
So yeah, need to consider that, and then also decide when do we want to take snapshots. So need to look at all the different triggers.
Right.
So those are the next steps.
I mean, on the saving in the repo, is there, I suppose we also need to think about that in terms of our documentation strategy, don't we? Because presumably you'd have a candidate document, wouldn't you? Where people would then give permission, or would we take the document to our own drive? That's the idea, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the document will be in the SingularityNET-Archive ownership, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. A copy of the document. Yes.
It could be a copy, and then stored in. I know you got a hand up on it. Stored. I'm just doing some notes here, and then the consideration there, because it's an API. Because it's an API interface. There's potential for scraping data and then putting that into a repo, as you say. But the consideration there, I suppose, is some licensing issues, maybe.
Yeah, we still need to figure out that part, how we will do that. So I think there's some discussion that we need to do there for that part.
Okay. Sorry, Vanessa, you have your hand up.
Yeah, just on triggers, based on the conversations that we've had around the blueprint document, it occurs to me that when a trigger happens, it might actually be too late. With all the conversation about resolving comments, people can also delete comments. And then if we haven't made the copy before they do that, it's like, we've lost stuff. So I've been thinking that maybe one of the things we need is a kind of community owned document workflow process that we can share with people to kind of say, all right, this is how you manage a document if you want it to be community owned and community led. You know, things like, for instance, you could give people a date by which you want them to comment, and then you could alert that this is the point at which a copy needs to be made. And then, you know, because like the supervisory council was saying that for their process, they need to start resolving comments, and that's kind of fine. But if somebody said, oh, for our process, we need to start deleting comments, that would be like, and yeah, it just feels like we probably should be kind of giving some advice on this, on kind of how to make it community led.
Okay.
Yeah, very much agree. That would make our lives much easier if we can.
It would.
People.
I mean, one of the
Yeah.
things I was going to ask, Andre, I don't know if you've really looked into this, but when a comment is resolved, if you're just looking at the front end of a Google Doc, it is a bit of a bugger because it kind of dissociates it a little bit from its context. But I'm assuming that even if a comment is resolved, if you're going in via the API, then it does retain its connection to the part of the document that it was a comment on.
I haven't looked at it. I'll take note of it.
Might
I'll
be,
see
yeah, it might
how
be just worth
what.
checking.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'll take a note of
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, I'll just put a note in the comment as well, but basically it does Google API include data on resolved comments. And I think,
Yeah.
I suspect the
Specifically context, Stephen,
yeah, the
rather than just
resolved,
data. Does
yeah,
it divorce the comment from its context is the question.
Like
and
how it does, because you get the comment always has context, and anything connected to that comment goes under that comment, like replies goes under that comment. So you'll be able to identify that. I just don't know how it looks like when it's resolved, but it will definitely be under that comment. I'm pretty sure of that.
yeah,
I
I
would have
can't.
thought so, yeah. But it's just that when you're viewing it like as an actual document, it can be hard to see.
Yeah,
So
I just
yeah.
try. I did come across it. I just can't quickly find it now. It's probably buried in some technical documentation. But in the Google API reference, I do recall seeing. You've probably seen it as well, Andre. Yeah, I think the answer is yes, because the way the JSON structure is that the top level is a drive object, and then the property of the drive object are things like, documents, sheets, and all that, and comments. And then the
Yes.
comments are contextualized. I think there's a kind of permanent context that's maintained, whether it's resolved or not. That's what I recall from the JSON structure. But you're right.
Yeah,
We
I
need
think you're right.
yeah,
Yeah.
but you're right, Andre. We need to confirm that. So
Yes.
yeah, exactly. Cool. Okay. So, and also, yeah, what I was going to ask actually was the getting back to the action, the GitHub action. Are there any blockers there, Andre?
Not yet. I think one potential blocker, but I'll get to that after well, maybe I should also have that as the next step is just testing like a bunch of documents and see if we run into rate limits. But I've tried to design it in a way that we don't run into that. But I think that's something we'll have to test. See how much we can handle. But this action will only run. Oh yeah, I think it should maybe run every day.
Right.
Midnight maybe.
I can't recall I can't recall what those limits are now on GitHub Actions. So yeah, exactly. We're probably just going to have to.
Yeah, actions are fine. It's the netlify functions that have 10-second limits, but I think GitHub Actions can run. A single job can run quite long.
It's giving me notify, not netlify. I can't remember how to spell netlify either. But yeah, maybe if you put that in, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah. On is that using Next.js and all that sort of stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've bought it using Next.js.
I did find out that, I mean, I'm not as knowledgeable on this, so we're choosing to use Netlify because it's serverless. It has a serverless function and it offers that as a free service. But
yeah,
okay. I'll just okay. That's fine. That's fine. But at the moment, there's no cost problems at the moment. So yeah. Okay.
You don't have to pay for anything.
Cool. And that's probably good. Okay, I'll move on then to there's probably another development project, another development issue, which is tool development.
Ubio Yes, we are going to meet with Ubia tomorrow.
Yeah, I think that's out of date, isn't it? It's
Yeah, I
we-
think that
we-
was the other meeting. But so we'll meet with Ubia tomorrow. Then we'll look at the next issue we're going to discuss is the data dump that I've done that Ubia will use to build these tools. He will use that data dump.
And we were also looking at in general our data structure. So
Yes.
yeah, because it's to see, I mean, this is related to LLM development a little bit because, well, general database reporting really is to understand the structure of the data we're capturing, and does it need to be amended in any sort of way?
Yeah.
I'll give some context for people who are new. The data dumps you're putting in, where are you putting them in here? Are you putting
in Archive Oracle? Oh, no, wait, sorry, no, it's in the SNet-Archive.
Yeah.
So
what we're talking about here, again, for people who are not familiar, if you go to this repository, which is our main repository actually, and you go to data, you'll see what we're talking about here, which is data dumps for, well, there's various CSV files, but there's meeting summary JSON dumps. And this is what the format looks like. And this is the format I've been using we will be using presently as the default standard for our data structure. Yeah. So, and it's based off work that was done in the past by Vanessa and Andre, and on meeting templates and how we record our work groups. So, really what we're doing is a review of this to see if we need to do any tweaks. Is that right, Andre?
Yeah. We want to make it as easy as possible for anyone to access it and build on top of it, to build something with it. So we'll just look if that structure is good.
Yeah. Let's do a little link there so there's more.
So yeah, this might change. So
yeah, I mean, particularly, I'm interested in, well, is how we might we need to be clear about the context for each structure. So for example, there's a structure for a meeting summary, and then there might be a different structure for actions and
I tried to keep the structure the same for all of them, even though they are totally different templates. They'll just have different keys, but I think it might be worth, if we look at it tomorrow, maybe also write documentation that goes with that JSON file, just to tell people how the structure works.
Yeah, and it's also how the data in that format can be manipulated natively. Like I discovered that, there's metadata associated with a JSON file, for example.
Yeah.
So let's say you wanted to count the instances of some data in the data. So that's where you need to consider that kind of thing outside of the database. That's what I mean. So, okay, so that's great. Just check any comments. Yeah, it is a great tool. Kudos to Andre for doing that work.
Thank you.
An ongoing work. It's great work, isn't it? Now we're on the general issue for tool development. Do you want to speak to this a little bit, Andre, or again,
there was one issue, one feature request that I did for Devo. So he asked to, when he's busy with the meeting summary, he wants a button to clear. I did that, and then he wants to clear everything except the meeting info at the top. So I did that. I fixed that for him. And then I worked on this, what we talked about now, the automation that creates that
Yeah.
data dump in the repo. So that's also to answer Gorga's question about the API. Once we've finalized these JSON formats and how we're going to structure it, right now we're thinking of structuring it yearly, but we'll see. Once that's finalized, then you can use the GitHub API to get this information and build something.
What's the difference between the array and the ID?
I had two different methods of, that was just me experimenting with different methods, fetching the data. And one of the methods required me to separate them by the ID, but I don't need to do that anymore. So we can just use the array.
Yeah, I suppose we also need, this is also where considerations about links to documentation may come into play, Vanessa, a little bit as well.
Yeah, definitely.
You see here, which is another big subject and related to API issues and also open source issues. But that's, but this gives, for people who knew, this gives an insight into the kind of issues we're working with in capturing the meetings that the SingularityNET Ambassadors Program community produce. They use that template, and this is what the broad data looks like, and that's great. But we also now at the point where we need to consider, is that a good structure, and then is it fit for purpose for putting over to used by LLMs or any other use we have for it. Okay, we have people with their hands up, but I can't see who they are because I've got my...
Anika's got his hand up.
Yeah, Anika, then go for it.
All right, good day, guys. Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Right. So I have a question for Andrew. Yeah. So previously, I did open an issue on adding a comment section in the tool for.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So I'd like to know when that could be done, because there is a pending issue whereby new documenters now probably might make some mistakes in the document, and if we want to correct those mistakes without having to submit the document first. So that's why I just brought it up again.
Yeah. I haven't gotten to that yet. It's not a small thing to add, but it is on the top of my list. I think that will be the next thing I'm gonna do.
Yeah, Steven, sorry, the Y is before the E in your letter.
Yeah, I can't see you spell. Yeah. I can't see.
I haven't forgotten.
I can't see who's on screen here, so that's people are gonna have to. Oh, there you go. Okay. I can see it
There's
now.
an E after the Y, sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, Vanessa, you got your hand up?
Just going to say, with approving meeting summaries lately, a few times I've noticed that the template that a particular work group has got doesn't seem to be serving their purpose particularly well. It feels like at some point in the next, like maybe at the beginning of Q3, we might need to do another round of going to work groups and going, what should your template be like again? Do you know what I mean? It feels like as we go on, we can refine it. So I just wonder if it's worth like bearing that in mind.
Right.
Yeah, we can do that. That's fine.
For fit for purpose, is that what we're looking for? Or, trying to think how to summarize what you
Yeah,
just
and
said
does
there.
it, because sometimes people define their template when they hadn't really done much documenting, and now it feels like it's clunky and it's not fitting what they actually do. I'm particularly thinking of governance work group. I came to a session, I ended up documenting because whoever wasn't there, and when I put it into the tool, I was like, oh, this is really repetitive. It doesn't really work.
Yeah, and also,
okay, sorry.
No, go for it.
Okay, yeah, based on what Vanny said, yeah, I actually did experience the same thing by documenting for R&D. So I felt that they needed some more, what I call it categories, like things to carry over for the next meeting and some other. So I think that's a very good idea.
I suppose it's also going to be a bit of a trade-off, isn't it, between, because you don't want to overcomplicate things. We want things to be reasonably generic, Vanessa?
Don't know about that, but I do think I think they would actually, any changes we make would be simplifying rather than complicating, but also recognizing what is the key things. Like, sorry, I'm digressing a bit here from what you were saying, Onyeka, but in the blueprint document, they've got something about documentation and archiving, which says that alternative viewpoints are not recorded. And I've just added a comment going, actually, in the Ambassadors Program, they are, because the meeting summary templates ask specifically for that. And I notice, Onyeka, when you document, you do that really assiduously. I don't know if everybody does, but again, maybe this is education and we could help to encourage people to, record the sort of hidden bits, where somebody disagrees with something or it doesn't go through, but we want to still capture that. I think we're digressing a bit from this issue, and I'm sorry. But
A little
anyway,
bit.
it's
I'll
worth-
just,
yeah,
I'll,
sorry. But
I will, yeah, I will just respond to some comments.
Yeah.
From Ian. Yeah. William, when you talk about library card system, this isn't really the archive is open source, so there's a kind of again, it's an issue we need to address in terms of our open source licensing and Creative Commons attribution, but there's no checking in and checking out. It should be all the data here should be transparently available to anyone who can access as a public repository. Now, having said that, we still need to consider ethical issues around how we use the data, particularly when we're applying artificial intelligence. And also, this is interesting actually also from what you're discussing, Vanessa, which is like viewpoint diversity, yeah? Because this is really a fascinating subject, actually. It's quite innovative as well, because let's say we are holding a meeting like this meeting or another meeting, and we have different points of view, and we then want to capture the data on that. Okay, so who said, well, first of all, we may want to make that anonymous. We might want to say that some people thought this, some people thought that, and they disagreed, let's say, and that's valuable information. So the question is how do we capture that? And that's not necessarily straightforward. And then why would we want to capture that? Is because then we could then feed that into a generative model. And the generative model would actually, if it's constrained to our domain knowledge, will allow us to provide some informed context to what we're producing. Sorry to interject there. But we're not, although we are on the relationship, at some point it is like, we don't do any transactional blockchain stuff per se, apart from the costs associated with the work that we do. So any individual issue that we do is exported out and then goes into TiVo's treasury system. Is that right, Andre?
Sorry, say again. Sorry, apology.
The only way that we relate to blockchain to date is through the costs of our issues. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, that's right. And that we don't, partly because it would be incredibly ambitious to create a direct relationship between an archive database or an LLM and a chain. Now, sometime in the future, we may want to look at that, but that's quite ambitious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry if this developed into a debate about different stuff, Andre.
No, that's fine.
That's fine. But to recap, the comment section, Onyeka just requested a comment section on the meeting template tool, and we were talking about whether meeting templates are fit for purpose, and you gave an update on the data dumps. And I just want to thank you for that data dump as well, Andre, because it's really good timing, because it gives me a great source to play with in terms of data. Yeah. Also, by the way, it open sources the data as well, which is good.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to what we covered. I think we've done all the development ones. Okay. And we're on to community engagement issues now. I'll put them in order. And this is over to you, Vanessa, on archives outreach.
I don't think there's anything to add. I'll do an update into the issue after the meeting, but we did get confirmation from the Supervisory Council that what we proposed and suggested to them about trying to work with documentation of the blueprint, in principle, they've said yes. So yeah.
Right.
But I don't think we just haven't got definite confirmation. We're sort of waiting for the foundation to go yes, because as people know, the Supervisory Council come to the end of their term this month. So yeah, we just need to work out how that's going to progress. But yeah, in theory, it
Yeah.
should be all right.
And for those new to this, what we're talking about here is expanding the scope of what we do a little bit to help other people in the ecosystem archive their content. And specifically, we've been talking to the Supervisory Council. That's a good summary. Vanessa, would you say?
Yeah, I think that covers it.
Okay, I'm trying to, for people who are not familiar with what we're doing, to try and explain what we're doing. Okay, so the next one, I think this is again Duke. Is Duke here? Or anyone who can update on this issue? Or is this an historical issue?
No, I think we just said at the beginning when we were looking at action items that Duke is going to aim to do it for next meeting on the 15th.
Fifteenth of May. Okay, I'll just put that in there to remind myself. Yeah, okay. Then we have, yeah, I'm terrible. I haven't really done any work on this. So this is what to explain. We started the archive work group in March or April of last year, I think it was, and but the data, the actual ambassadors program goes back before then a little bit. And that's what this issue refers to. It refers to capturing the backlog. We had some difficulties in the beginning because a lot of the data that was captured originally was on Miro boards. Now, that was great, and Thibaut did a great job there of capturing that data. But the problem is it's very difficult to get archivally to get that data out. So what we've fallen back on is we decided to archive historical YouTube meetings on the ambassadors program. This is going back to right at the beginning. But unfortunately, I've just been too busy to to do this. So that's the update. And I will say some issues will be like this. Some issues we are more productive than others. The approach we take to the stand-up is that if there's no work done, we just can move on. So there's no work done on this, and I'll move on. So I'm just checking comments. Is there any questions and comments? Okay. On to archive labeled community engagement. This is the taxonomy tagging process. Vanessa?
Yeah, we had some fun with GitHub issues yesterday where we realized that this was all quite muddled and it includes several different payment elements. And for those who are new here, what we try and do with the board is ensure that each issue relates to one payment to one person as far as we
Right.
possibly can. So I've created a plethora of other issues to cover it all. But this one, is just literally about the tagging process itself. We did a training session on the 29th, which will come up in another issue in a minute, but then there's 6 people who are going off to actually do some tagging. The reason we're doing that is that the meeting summary tool that we've talked about invites people to add quite a number of different kinds of tags. And before we had the meeting summary process in place, things were a little, yeah, things were quite thinly tagged, and it's only been when I've manually added it, added a summary to the Git book prior to 2024 that I've tagged things as I've gone along. But yeah, there's a lot missing. So in order to get the pre-2024 Git book up to the standard of the current one, yeah, because tags really are going to help an LLM to find what somebody might be asking for. So yeah, this is part of our process of data cleaning and improving. And there's 6 people, many of whom are in the meeting today, Ekamini and Onyeka and Essie and a couple of other people are basically going through that. So on the 15th, in our next meeting, we're going to have a look at the tagging spreadsheet that we've created and see how people have got on and see if we need to extend that deadline. But you don't know, we might have got it all done by the 15th.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I mean, there's a footnote to that. Everyone who's working on this is actually also working on preparing for our large language model, because it's essentially, as you mentioned, Vanessa, it's going to help with creating what's part of called the augmentation part of the RAG process. So tags will create a context, a meaningful context for the data, and it will provide us a way to refine the data we retrieve. Let's leave it at that. So I'll move on, Vanessa, from this, or do you want any?
No, I think that's grand, unless anybody's got anything to add.
Yeah. But I just wanted to highlight that because work on AI doesn't just mean development. Basically, it's like there's a whole. Obviously, people got the impression there's a whole lot of things to consider here, like documentation, like working, classifying data, like administering things and all that. I just wanted to make that clear. So anyway, moving on to suggesting tasks. This was Duke again, but I think this is this completed now, or?
Yeah, actually, because we did that vote with TiVo running
Yeah.
a Miro board. So it's actually, yeah, I think we should close that issue now. We'll just go to the bottom. Is there any reason we kept it open?
No.
No, we should close it then. Yeah.
Okay.
For those who weren't here, this was when we were deciding what to include in our Q2 budget, and we made some suggestions and had a vote.
Okay.
Oh no, was it? Because we needed to create issues for the things we'd agreed to do. That'll be what it is. Yeah, if you leave it open, I'll do that after the meeting.
Okay, so I'll put that as a
Because we've
note.
got things that are on our
Okay.
budget and that we're planning to do, and we haven't got issues for them. So yeah.
The tasks we agreed to do. Okay, yeah. Okay. Right. Okay, I'll leave it open. The more taxonomy, is this separately discussed? Should we do this, or for other aspects of the taxonomy?
This is going to be after we have finished our tagging process. We're going to be trying to analyze what we've got and looking at whether we can derive any control vocabularies, because that's a really tricky thing. It's like sometimes you want to do that and sometimes you don't. So yeah, that is the work that comes next. So yeah, it's just there, which we will get to once we finish the tagging.
Yeah. And there's
Aiming to finish by the end of June.
and you provide a link to a work plan there for anyone who wants further information on that.
It's a bit thin. It's more of a budget, to be honest. So
Is
if
it?
if anybody wants to know,
Yeah.
if anyone wants to know more about how
Yeah.
exactly we're working, then yeah, pop me a
But
message or something.
by the way, if anyone, I'll post a link to the board we're looking at here. I forgot to do that at the beginning. Sorry about that. So if anyone wants to follow along, they can. Then we have another taxonomy, which is mentorship and check-in. Yeah. So that's a follow on from the other ones. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just me going through everybody's suggested tags and just checking that things are spelt right and they're not duplicated and blah blah blah. So
Yeah.
a little bit labor intensive, but
Yeah.
needs to be done.
again, this is really important to capture this because that we were discovering in other projects, particularly blockchain projects in the past, there's a lot of hidden work that people just don't realize there's a lot of work done in like mentorship, check-in, doing a lot of running around and quality control. So it's really important to track this kind of work. Then we're on to archive, the actual archive categories, which are, if I start at the beginning, we have correction Q1, Q1 correction and maintenance of monthly records.
This works in parallel with the tagging work in a way. I'm just plowing through it, and I honestly thought I'd be finished by now. But yeah, I'm meant to be covering June to October in Q1, and then October to December in Q2. And this is just stuff like there is a big issue about how people are named in the archives. Sometimes, I mean, my favorite example is that myself, sometimes I go in as Callie from Aurum, which is my Discord name. Sometimes I go in as Vanny, sometimes I go in as Vanessa, and it depends what name people know me by if they're documenting. And the same is true for quite a lot of us here. My gut feeling is that we should try to standardize that and maybe say, look, you use your Discord name, but that doesn't suit everybody. So I'm wondering if there's a way that we could train an LLM to understand that, I don't know, Waka is the same person as Walter and Callie from Auron is the same person as Vanessa. Yeah, it's interesting. And I think this is something that we need to tidy up a little bit. I'm also just like plowing through and checking dates are right and checking that actions and whatever are tagged as actions and decision items are, so it's just a bit painstaking, honestly.
Is that potentially a part of our ethical policy? The
Possibly, yeah.
because
Possibly.
I mean, it'd be interesting to see what people here think as well. I mean, don't answer straight, but I mean, the issue is like, so think of your own example. How would you like to be associated with any particular work? Now, there's a number of issues there. Sometimes you may want to be recognized for the work you do, but you want that to be anonymous. That's quite common because we all have circumstances in our different locations, which may mean that data can be misused. There's also legislation about the use of people's data. How things currently work in the Ambassadors Program is that a lot, correct me if I'm wrong, Andre or Vanessa, but a lot of payments are processed through Discord names. Is that right? So, if you do a piece of work and you get some Ajax for that, then that is recorded against your Discord name on DWork. Is that right? So
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're already, if you're paid, there is a sense in that you're already identified in that manner. Now, so just bear that in mind. Now,
It's whether you want to cross-reference that and end up with people being able to see like that your Discord name relates to your real name, or it's fiddly. And I think the people who are working on the tag taxonomy stuff, I've had some discussions about this, so maybe we'll have something to contribute to that discussion, but it's definitely part of an ethical process as well.
Right. Yeah, Conan's just using wallet numbers and so. I mean, there's a lot of things to consider here because the very act of associating one identity with another is quite tricky. It could be quite controversial. It's because it could, for example, reveal who's getting paid for certain work, which people may not want that revealed, for example. But it's something we need to consider carefully. That's our way I put that. Okay. Archive workgroup budget. Is this just a holding issue, isn't it?
I think it's because there are still I think we agree we keep it open until all the Q1 work is done and paid, and we're nearly there. So
yeah. I mean, in answer to was it Gorga says how to contribute to the archive work group. I mean, this is I mean, you are contributing by being here. It can be a bit of a learning curve because we are, as you can see, covering a huge range of work. There are opportunities. I mean, there's like the taxonomy work, but that's but I suppose that's partly us. We need to highlight what opportunities become available. There's also budgetary issues, aren't there, as well, Vanessa?
Yeah, I guess there is. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would just say watch this space. Not all work that comes up will be immediately paid. And it really going to also depend on your interests, really. I suppose what we need to do a better effort of encouraging participation, maybe more in, for example, our policy discussions and things like that. Okay, then we get on to individual issues for content in the archives Git book. And these issues track what's been completed. Yeah. So the ones that are open, they still have some content to be completed. Is that right, Vanessa?
Yeah, which one are you looking at now? January. There was,
January.
yeah, Strategy Guild. This was the thing. Yes. Let me just check Discord while we are here, but I'm pretty sure I haven't had a reply yet from them. But I noticed they haven't put in a budget for Q2, so I kind of think they are on pause at the moment. I think that's a reasonable assumption. So
Right.
so I'll mark any Strategy Guild ones as like no summary given, and then we can close January because that was the only outstanding issue.
Okay. Okay, I'll leave it open for them now. Just put that note in there to remind
Yeah.
ourselves.
Nice
And then
one.
February we have pretty complete. There's a few gaps. No, there's not many gaps at all, really, is there? It's all
Yeah,
complete.
no, there was something though that, oh yeah, this is Essie was going to talk to Kenichi and find out what the score is. So we'll leave that open while next meeting.
Hi,
Because Essie,
Annie.
hey,
For this task, I already reached out to Kinishi and I'm waiting for him to give me a response regarding because he asked me which month are we looking at, and I told him from February if I'm not mistaken.
I think
So
there might even be some in January. I'm not sure. He did give us
yeah, he gave
a
us
doc, didn't he?
last year, ending of last year into January. So that
Yeah,
was
that's
the
right.
reason why I just asked for from February. So
Okay.
I'm waiting for him to share that, and I
All
will.
right, nice. But I think the other thing that we need to know is he kind of planning to upload them or get somebody from Writers Work Group to upload them, or is he kind of thinking that we'll do it for him? Because I'd kind of ideally not like to, but if that's the only way we're going to get them in the archive, then all right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll get back to you on that.
yeah. So what's the latest status we're waiting for? Sorry.
We're just waiting for Kenichi to get back to you, Essay, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kenichi, you're not here, are you? Sometimes he does come and I haven't, no, he's not here. Oh, that's a shame.
All right, I think I'm just suggesting that you guys can also speak to CJ. I think he's the one actually documenting now for the writers work group. So in case of this, let me say from last week, so he can just upload them directly to the tool instead of then we can meet Kenichi for the previous ones, but for this one, we can just meet CJ. That's CJ fact.
Okay, so the one I reached out to him for was not for this new month because I've not started chasing for this new month.
Yeah,
It's just for Q2 or quarter one actually. That's what I'm
just saying so that you can actually start uploading these particular ones, the ones for this month.
Okay, can you please share me is Discord, or is it this is Discord name CJ?
CJ Franklin. That's
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if you could do that in chat, that's great. Thanks there. Okay, I won't put that in here because it's okay, and then moving on to March. And here we have some gaps, R&D Guild, well, Archives Work Group. I've actually I need to, yeah, I've been posting videos now, but I haven't really been updating the tool. I need to go back update the tool, so that's my bad on that one.
Yeah, and I've got a couple of town halls to add, I think, haven't I? Because they hadn't been added to YouTube when I last did it. So yeah, I'll
That
go
one.
back and I'll look at
Yeah.
that today and fix that. And then yeah, probably then March can be closed. Woohoo!
Yeah, that's cool. Right. And then April was probably not going to be much because it's just this month. So no, there isn't really any data there because we the current month doesn't tend to be much status because it's just finished.
I mean, there's quite a lot of documents in there already, but yeah, Essie, if you can go into that issue and give us a list of all of them, and then we can tick off the ones that are there and see what's left. That'd be good.
Okay, I'll work on that this week.
Brilliant. That's great. Thanks, Essie. Okay, as you see, these issues covered the updating of content in the archives month by month. Again, for people who are new, the reason why we do this is so that for budgetary reasons partly, and also so that we can kind of audit what content has been provided or not by different work groups. Okay, now moving on, we have Q2 correction issue. Is this just a standard issue, or is this just
No, this is just plowing through it
yeah,
and like getting it. Yeah, so I will yeah, it needs to be signed off by the end of June. So this is just the second version. This is we looked at the quarter one before.
yeah.
And once I've got the quarter one done, then the quarter two one is pretty quick, I think, because there's not as much.
Again, this is like a quality assurance task, isn't it, really? So
yeah, basically.
It kind of it's interesting in terms of how we categorize our work a little bit as well, thinking about it, just occurs to me. But yeah, again, really important work that is often hidden in other projects. So we often cannot just rely on data provided, but we often have to check what's provided and to check the quality of it, maintain the quality of it. Okay, then we have a standing issue, which is this is just an issue that refers to any tasks or discussions around our current budget, which is quarter two budget. And I don't really know what the latest status of this. As far as I recall, it's been agreed. Is that right? And that's where we were.
I think it's being decided at the moment. So core contributors have got individual GitHub what am I talking about? Google Forms.
Google Forms.
They've got individual Google Forms to fill in to say whether they consent to individual workgroup budgets or not. So that is pending, and I think, can anyone remember when the sort of end date was? It Sunday the 5th that people have to get those forms finished by, and then if there's any like lack of consent for any, then there's a meeting.
Right.
But yeah, so we're pending. We don't know yet.
And that's coming out of Treasury Guild? Or
I think it's kind of between Treasury Guild and governance work group, but I think the actual meeting will be held through Treasury Guild. So yeah, I'll put a link to the form in case anybody hasn't seen it. Anybody here who is a core contributor, you should be going through and
All right.
approving or not approving budgets.
I'm
in the
sure
next
I've
few
I'm
days.
sure I've done that, but I can't remember. Will it tell you if you've done it?
No, it's all a bit manual. I think
Wow. Okay. But yeah, I'm sure I've done that. But yeah,
have you gone through an awful lot of Google Forms and said I consent or I don't?
no.
Because if you haven't, then you haven't done it.
Oh shit.
So
But
let me find the
there was
link
another
just a
Google
sec.
form a few months ago, wasn't it? Made
No,
of
that was
some.
for quarter 1. Do you
Oh,
remember
blimey.
we all
Okay.
had to approve quarter 1 after quarter 1 had finished.
But that was just one form.
Yeah, I know, because that was the decision, was that because it was past the end of the quarter, we just need to bloody approve them or not. So
Blimey.
but this time the experiment is to kind of look at each one individually.
Well,
Let me just pull a link.
each work group's budget.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So actually, if the link I've just put in chat, Stephen, if you want to screen share it just for info.
Yeah. The budget calculator.
Yeah. So you can see the proposal budgets for each work group in column E, and then in column J, there's a link to a form for each one.
And who's supposed to complete these?
Core contributors. Do we need the form with the list for who's a core contributor? Let me just find that. I've got it somewhere.
Oh, I'm a core contributor, for example, on time, but
Yeah.
let's
This
take
is basically the kind of thing like I was going to say committed, but that's not the word. Have you done a certain amount of engagement
yeah.
within the last 6 months?
And there's the forms. So you go to a form.
There we are. Ambassador Program core contributors. That's the one.
Oh wow.
Let
So
me
it's
just
for each individual one. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I think it is quite a good way in a sense, because if you've got a particular thing that you think you want to discuss, because like
Right.
with a consent process, it's not about, no, this is terrible. It's just, if you feel like it's not safe to proceed and you think that there is something that needs to be discussed first. Right, I am just putting into the chat a link to the list of who's a core contributor. It's been widely touted there are 51 of them, and we've actually counted and there's 41. So, yeah.
Have you put that in chat? I can't see it. Have I?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just open this one. Oh, then there you go.
Yeah.
Core
So if you scroll down
contributors.
a little bit, you can see the list of who is now.
Blimey.
And the ones marked with a little highlight are new this time. So, and then if you scroll down even further, you'll see who it was last time we made a decision, which was 30 people. So it's growing rapidly, which is really cool.
Right. Okay. It's just, I don't know, I wasn't really aware of all this, or just out of touch, I suppose. The okay, so I should better get on. I'm gonna get chased
Yeah,
at some
sorry, that
point.
was a bit of a divergence, but
No, it's kind
yeah,
of
so
interesting, I suppose. But yeah. I suppose.
but yeah, the answer is we leave that issue open until we know whether our budget is approved or not.
And the aim here is to create a decentralized management of the budgets, I suppose. That's the idea, is it? I suppose, really.
I mean, it's sort of, I don't think there's a lot of budget management going on, but there is, unless no, I mean, obviously within individual work groups, people are, but I don't think that's what this is. This is just approving budgets. There was some interesting conversation in Treasury Guild about what would be a valid reason for disapproving a budget. And my view is very much that in a decentralized ecosystem, work groups should have a bit of autonomy. And so if you're not involved in a work group and you just think, oh, I don't think that's a very good thing to spend money on, it shouldn't matter. It should be that they think it is. But let's say that they haven't itemized their budget or they haven't explained what they're going to do. That could be a valid reason. Or if their budget wasn't created by them and it's just been a holding budget from a previous quarter, or stuff like that. But, you know, obviously everybody makes their own decision. Oh, I should add, there's a context setting document that onboarding have created to just kind of give an outline of how the process works. If anybody doesn't know, so I'll find that and link it. But what we've said in there is, of course, that you can object for whatever reason. You just have to explain what your reason is. That's all.
Okay. Okay, so if anyone's a core contributor, there's links are provided in chat. I would encourage you to approve our budget or not. It's up to you. But our budget there's going to be details in the spreadsheet here of the details of our budget, presumably. And so you can check all that to see rationales and things like that, I presume.
Yep.
Yeah. So I won't go into detail now because I want to get into a very long conversation about budgeting, which is best left to Treasury Guild and, you know, but we have done a lot of work on planning out what our priorities are for this quarter, and to try and cost them. By the
I mean,
way,
actually, the only thing that is worth saying on that issue, Stephen, if you can just open it again, just for transparency,
yeah,
we had a meeting where we agreed the budget and we all signed it off. But if you just scroll down again, I realised that in that very meeting, we'd said we needed to do a town hall session on how we use GitHub and the principles of open source, and we hadn't costed for it. So I added something to
right,
our budget
yeah,
after agreement to cover that. So I really hope nobody objects, and if they did, we can actually change it before it's agreed. But I just think we had agreed it. It had been said in 2 meetings, and we just completely forgot to add it to the
Yeah.
actual budget.
I
So
think-
can I just ask if there's any objections?
I mean, to recap, that's going to, there's no objections, I don't think. But if anyone's got any objections, they want to put privately, either message us or put it in chat. Just as a kind of, again, for people who are new here, if you look at an individual issue, you can see the amount is costed here. And this can also all be exported. So it gives you an idea. And also this should tally broadly, there may be some exceptions, with a budget spreadsheet here. Okay. So, it also shows you the level of budgeting we're getting. For example, some things I'm not really budgeted for, like everything I said about this open source strategy here earlier on in the meeting, if you recall, there's no budget for that really, apart from what you just mentioned on the GitHub presentation, really. So a lot of this would only be costed for Q3. Is that right, Vanessa, do you think?
Yeah,
also,
probably.
yeah. And also, it's kind of sensitive to questions about how, like Gorga was saying, like how do we contribute? Yeah, because this is not trivial work. This is like highly, I mean, it's quite, it's almost like voluntary in this stage. So a lot of the questions of contribution is going to be often be based on what are people prepared to work for, or or how much we can work on a voluntary basis. I don't know. So it's like there are issues like that to be bear in mind. Like I won't give too many specific. The level of rewards we get for different tasks, I would just say this rarely match what you might get in the real world. I'll just put that out there. So just to bear that in mind, we are trying to develop that and to encourage bounties and broader participation. But obviously, that's going to be difficult if you're planning on a quarterly basis as well, because as new people come along and you've already budgeted for your quarter, it can be tricky to suggest what they should get involved in for the next quarter. And there may be a way we can get around that. Maybe we should have a portion of the budget that's like a float, maybe, which we can apply
It's a contingency.
a
Yeah.
contingency, yeah, so that if new people come along, we have some neutral money, if you like, to fund things. You know, I'm not sure
We-
what people. Yeah,
We actually did something like that this quarter. We had an issue where people could suggest new work.
yeah.
We
so-
did, but it's already accounted for now because those who were
Yeah.
there at that time
Exactly,
in
yeah.
that meeting did it, and that money is now earmarked. But no, how we handled it in quarter one to quarter two was where we had chunks of money for a piece of work. If we needed more for new tasks, then I just split it in half and put some of it into quarter two. So we could do that again. We could say, well, all right, we'll actually push this piece of work back a little bit, move some of it into quarter three, and then we'll have a little bit of budget to use for new ideas.
Yeah, we might need to revisit this, but particularly for new people who really might be interested in, like Conan was mentioning, the working with GitHub, or what Gorga was asking about how to contribute, particularly with all the work that could be coming out on AI. Not all of this work is technical either. There is a technical process, but there's also, for example, you know, working out what our open source and Creative Commons licensing strategy should be. And also, this is a huge one, which we probably should create an issue on at some point, which is basically what should our applied AI ethics process be as well. So that, again, isn't costed. So, you know, that's something to consider. Anyway, before I'll get on to the last issue here, which is Sukran's bounty for updates to Ambassador Gitbook. Is this closed? Vanessa?
No, this is going to stay open until, I mean, the next update she's going to do is the 17th of this month.
Oh, right, okay.
And I guess that is going to be including the agreed budgets that have been approved for each work group. So yeah.
Right.
So, you know, we're just trying to make sure that the Ambassador Gitbook has up-to-date information.
I'll come to the end. I'll just give a couple of any other business items, and then I'll stop the recording so we can have like a general discussion that's off the record. That's what we tend to do as well. For any other business, I'll just raise again what I just touched on previously, which is kind of related to budgets as well, and also to how to contribute, is should we create new issues for some of the ones in this issue? That's one thing. But should we create separate issues for each of these? I don't know what people think.
Feels like you want to get a little bit further on with what you're doing to see how it falls into issues, and then maybe you could suggest something in the next meeting and see what people think. I don't
Okay.
know. What do
Yeah.
people reckon to that as an approach?
Okay. It's maybe a bit too much to take in all at once. But and then I'll just put it out generally, is there any other business for our core team to discuss? Chat. Yeah. Yeah, thanks, Gorga, for that. Yeah. It's also, it's not only not trivial work, but we're kind of the way we're trying to do it is making it more difficult in a way, because we're not just doing it, we're trying to do it in a way that's educational. So we're trying to do it in a way that demonstrates how we do it. So it's a bit like a ground up process, and it's going to take a lot longer. But we think it's the right way to go about things, because it will help educate people in the use of AI tools and archiving and data management, that kind of thing. Okay, if there's no more comments, I'll stop the share, and I'll stop the recording. As I say, thank you for everyone coming. We're great attendance, and thank you for your patience as well. And I'll stop the recording.